Hello and welcome back to Read Becca for my weekly chatty catch up on everything that I've read, everything I'm currently reading, and everything I'm looking forward to reading for about the current week. So I had another great week of reading. We're ending the year, I think, on a very strong finish, hopefully. My weeks are a bit chaotic lately and looking forward, but I'm very hopeful that I'm gonna actually do a lot of the things I want to get done before the end of the year, reading-wise anyway. So, reading-wise, I finished the penultimate Sarah Gailey book. I'm attempting to read Gailey's entire back catalog, and this is When We Were Magic. I really didn't know what to expect. Going in, this is Gailey's only YA novel, and as you can see, it's kind of a magical teen girl squad, and I didn't know at all what to expect other than that. And this really surprised me. So I really enjoyed this a lot. It was almost unputdownable. I just was flying through and enjoying the story, enjoying the plot that kind of made me think a little of Practical Magic meets The Craft, sort of. So let me read you the opening, because it's the perfect opening to hook you into the story. I didn't mean to kill Josh Harper. Really, I didn't. It's just that I was nervous, and condoms are more complicated than I was expecting. And one thing led to another, and, well, now there's blood everywhere, and he's dead. So that's the start of our story, and we have this group of very tight-knit friends who have such genuine love for each other, all trying to deal with this scenario where one of them attempted to have sex for the first time with, someone after prom or at prom, and it went horribly, horribly wrong. And this was someone she didn't really care about or have a prior connection with, and it was just kind of a on the whim thing. And then all of a sudden, all of them are caught up in hiding his body parts. So there's a lot of misadventures, I guess, in getting there, in doing that, magical and non-magical. There's a lot of serious elements, so it's not just like silly about that and sort of treating that lightly whatsoever. Each of them seems to sort of give up something of themselves in order to do this. And I love that the undercurrent to all of this is a subtext of telling a deeper message in this much lighter, very propulsive story. So we're getting a subtext of topics like identity and self-acceptance being really major themes, as well as honesty and communication with the people that you love. So I thought that was really fantastic. And those are aspects, I think, that have been true to all of Gailey's books. Really, those themes of self-acceptance and identity, I think, play through all of them that I've read. I have one remaining. As well, the other thing I noted from Gailey's works that is very prominent here is we have a single character in first person. Much like other works I've read from Gailey before, they focus on a single character and really delve deep into that character. And that character is usually flawed. So Alexis, our main character here, is not necessarily unlikable, but she is flawed. She is making mistakes as she goes. And so she's not always perfect. She's not always doing the right thing. And she's just grappling with what is the best thing to do and not always choosing it. Especially as a teenager, she doesn't have the big picture. She doesn't have the maturity quite. But I think seeing her play off of her friends and the supportive aspect of their relationship was so great to see. So I think that has been something from this author that I've enjoyed the most. And I talked about it, I think, before with Magic for Liars a couple months ago. And in that one, I think I mentioned how much Gailey's work, they are tackling these individual characters and looking at their character growth, their interpersonal relationships, more so than whatever plot is behind it. And very often the marketing pushes the plot aspects at the forefront. And the book's not really about that. And that's the case here, but I would say this is probably the one that is most about the plot of Gailey's works that I've read so far. So I just love what they are doing as an author. I felt this rang so true, and it had so much heartwarming vibes, despite the subject matter of, these friends banding together to help one another out, to figure out what the right thing to do was for themselves, and understand who they were as they're in this very transitional period in their lives, also looking forward to the end of their high school experience and what they want in the future, what they want out of their relationships with each other. And it was very, very good. So enjoyed this a lot. Very much surprised by it. I shouldn't be, because obviously I've loved Gailey's work. So, sorry, I got interrupted by someone at the door. So the next one that I read was The Idolatry of God by Peter Rollins, who is a philosopher and sort of Christian thinker, I guess. He's someone I've seen speak, not seen speak. I have heard speak on podcasts quite a few times and in interviews. I've read some short form stuff, but not anything long form like this before. And this was a big disappointment, I would say, unfortunately, mainly because my expectations were really high. This came off to me a little bit like a sermon. He's not a pastor as far as I know, or has never been a pastor as far as I know, but he writes in that way that sermons are laid out, if you're not familiar, where they're very surface level. They don't delve too deep, and they have to be broken up into bite-sized chunks to be very consumable and not bore people. They're littered with these cheesy anecdotes and, parables and analogies to help make what you're trying to get across more clear. And meanwhile, you're just giving cheesy, clearly fake anecdotes. And so I had a hard time connecting with it because of that. Toward the end, though, the last little chunk was fantastic and was so worth reading this just for the last little chunk. But I just wish more of it had been like that. So if you've been in Christendom at all, you've seen something like this. And actually I'll probably take a picture and put it up. But the gist of it is that you have a human with the chasm between them and God, the separation from God. Then you have a human trying to fill it with all kinds of things. And then you have the human having that chasm filled, and their connection to God is there by the cross, right? So that is the foundation of this argument that he is making here, where he is trying to say that the idolatry of God here is really the church attempting to sell religion or even God himself as something to fill that chasm. He's saying that is a false idol, and the church attempting to sell that is no different than people trying to sell you consumer goods or drugs or drinking or sex or anything like that to fill that separation and incompleteness that humans feel. And he's arguing that that is sort of the human condition, that sin is a separation from God, and so as long as we are in the human condition, we will have that, and we shouldn't be seeking to fill that. Any church that promises to do that is effectively selling you something false, a false idol. So that's the topic that he is coming at. And I just don't feel that he made his argument. He didn't really build an argument. He kind of said, yeah, I've really thought this out, and here's the truth, guys. It didn't build from anywhere. So yeah, I wasn't convinced, effectively. He just sort of kept repeating the same thing of why he feels it's the best and why he feels it's the true thing without actually substantiating. Even as basic an aspect as that claim that humans all sort of feel like they have a hole they're trying to fill. At no point does he even try to go out and survey people and say, oh yeah, I talked to some people and they all agreed. That just seems to be a thing he has decided that is universally true. So I felt like a lot of this was not backed up, and it concerned me that he doesn't seem to think he needs to. Once we did get to that last part, though, the last part was what was really interesting to me, because he's basically gotten to, in the section before the conclusion, how he thinks people should sort of implement these things. He's talking about transgressively disrupting our norms and our expectations of what we've settled into in our churches. And he talks through this, it's almost like a performance art experience that was put on, where they were challenging those things for people and making them a little uncomfortable with the things they accept from church and the sort of norms that they are just sliding through. And it was really cool to read the things they tried, things like putting really disturbing things in worship songs that make people feel unsettled, because there actually are worship songs that have very similar things. Having a woman go up, preparing to speak, and then repeatedly stop before she says anything, and then project up on the wall the verse about women having to remain silent in the church. Things like showing someone go up, speak this very impassioned, really moving sermon, and then play a clip of a minister who is diametrically opposed to this particular congregation having given that sermon. Things like that, where it is really disrupting what people are willing to accept and their immersion within their own religious ideology, I guess. So that was really cool stuff that I liked seeing, and think that that is very healthy and probably good for breaking people out of the mindset that they get into. But how does that all play in necessarily to that starting premise? I'm not sure I know. That aspect of incompleteness or lack of wholeness and the church promising to fill it doesn't seem like it ties directly into the sort of things that he's telling them to do to disrupt like people's ideology. So he does very much encourage and welcome doubt, and that we should be pushing people to question more and think more out of the box about how they believe, how they engage with their spirituality. But I don't feel like he made any linear conclusions either. So this was, I enjoyed it. I like Pete Rollins very, very much as, I guess, a speaker. I think I like him better verbally as an orator than I did in print, unfortunately. So I wouldn't regret reading this or possibly checking out other of his work. So he has a couple of other books, but it was a little let down after having been on, a very high from his previous like discussions on podcasts where I thought I was going to get something completely different. So it was okay. Then I read a Japanese children's book. This is Yuki no Hi no O ki yaku sama. And this is a really cute little book about these kids with their grandparents. And it's a very snowy day outside. So they're kind of having a snow day adventure, and we get to see the seasons change. This one, I really like the art style. It's very sweet and cozy looking, especially with all the snow. Lots of great scenery throughout. I was a little intimidated by this one. It was probably the first one I've picked up that has as much text as this, where it has like full paragraphs on pages. But this actually went way better than I had expected, specifically because I know a lot of family-related words and I know a lot of weather-related words. So I was able to read a lot more of this than I expected, purely because of the topic. So it was really fun, and I'm glad I read another Japanese book. Then in digital stuff I picked up recently, I read 3 volumes of SpyxFamily, volume 4, 5, and 6. I really enjoyed this series. 4 was my absolute favorite of the 6 volumes I've read so far. So volume 4 jumps right in with this family that we are following in the series. The patriarch is the actual spy, codenamed Twilight. And he has recruited a woman to play his wife for this mission. And her name is Yor. She's secretly an assassin, though, but he doesn't know that. And she's really, really bad at being a housewife. He also adopted and got away with adopting a little girl named Anya, who is secretly a mind reader. And so they all have these special abilities, but none of them, except for Anya, the little girl, knows about their special abilities. And she keeps it barely under wraps, but is constantly like trying to maneuver things properly to get around with it. But in this volume, and I think why volume 4 was my favorite, is the fact that they're going to get a dog, and it has the entire volume as a single story arc of that story. Naturally, things get upset immediately at the beginning because they're headed out to go look into adopting a dog, and Twilight, our patriarch, gets called away on spy business. So he fakes that he has to really go to the bathroom and just disappears. And because there is a hyper-intelligent bomb dog situation that he has to deal with, that's a threat. Naturally, you can see that has potentially a tie-in here. So the mother and Anya go off on their dog adoption mission on their own. And things, of course, go crazy. It turns into a big misadventure. Anya winds up running around the city with a dog that she doesn't know, and Yor is just trying to keep up with her and keep her safe, and playing the housewife while also doing a lot of assassin stuff. So this was a really, really fun volume, I want to say episode, a fun volume that I think had the room to really tell a story. Volume 5 was still fun and was kind of more of the same from previous volumes, where it had a number of different shorter arcs. So we had, you know, stuff about your trying to learn to cook because she's a really bad cook and she just wants to get better. She doesn't want to lose this spot that she's got as the housewife, right? And then Anya dealing with school, trying to not fail tests, and all of the misadventures of that. Volume 6 was the least successful for me. So this was a real mix from top to bottom. Volume 6, I think, was a big disappointment because there's a big sports element, and not that that's anything I dislike, but probably a quarter of the entire volume is just tennis match action. And that's it. It's just, you know, people swiping the balls and trying to hit stuff through the nets and hurting each other while they're doing that, because Twilight, we're focused on Twilight and a partner of his who's also a spy going undercover to a tennis championship. And of course, you know, the family has some background stuff going on, but the main focus is that. And so they're just playing tennis for a lot of it. And of course, they're really phenomenal tennis players, unexpectedly, but it's just tennis. So I found that a lot more boring. But it's easy to fly through because so many of the panels were literally just action shots, not a lot of talking. So I think this was the least substantial as well of the entire series so far. So I've really enjoyed that series, and I definitely am going to continue. I think one last thing that I will at least mention, I'm pretty positive I finished Hen Fever by Olivia Waite since last week. If you missed out on my November wrap up, I did already talk about that there. So that would be 2 videos ago for me, I think. So if you want to hear more about that, it's a novella, it's a sapphic romance. I really enjoyed it. It pretty much hits all the beats, not beaks, beaks is appropriate though, hits all the beats that you would want from a romance novella. It does actually build the romance. It has a little bit of spice. It was really delightful and perfect for the holiday season. I believe that is everything that I read this week. As far as what I am reading now, I only have one physical book to hold up, and that's Michael Lewis's Going Infinite. This is a bestseller, so this will be my December bestseller pick. And I realized I picked this up and got it home. I did not even know what it was about. I've not heard anybody talk about this really, which is very surprising, but I picked it up purely on Michael Lewis's name. I would read just about anything by him. He writes journalistic nonfiction with a very strong storytelling, I guess, vibe. I don't know what to call it. He writes narratively very well. His probably most well-known books are The Big Short and Moneyball, I think. So obviously books that have been adapted to film because he has that really strong narrative storytelling ability. And so this one apparently is about crypto bros, I think. I'm just barely getting into it. We will see once I get more into it. I also am reading Normal by Amy Bloom, a couple decades old book, but Amy Bloom was up for the BookTube Prize with her most recent book this past year, or this current year, in nonfiction. And then I am also reading The Starling House by Alix E. Harrow, and so far very, very good. I really am a huge fan of Harrow's work, so the audio of that is mixing me up, I would say. I want to reread it in print, I think I already know. So I think that is it for all the books stuff. As far as watching stuff, I watched a couple things. So obviously, Great British Bake Off. The finale was this week. I'm not going to talk about any of the content, but it's bittersweet because I was so excited for the finale and couldn't wait for it, and now it's over. So no more Bake Off until the holiday stuff comes out. But yeah, it's very sad to have another Bake Off season ended and not have more to watch coming out. I was very happy with the finale. It was really good. I also watched a couple movies. I watched A Walk in the Woods, which is adapted from the Bill Bryson book, and it kind of made me not want to read any Bill Bryson. He was not very likable at all. Yuck. Like, the casting was really fantastic though. Specifically, the entire secondary cast was phenomenal. It was, like, Ron Swanson, I can't think of his name. Kristen Schaal showed up, like, really great secondary cast. But Robert Redford, maybe he was just acting well. He seemed like a real a-hole. Definitely some toxic masculinity vibes there for sure. So that was not great. But then I watched the holiday calendar and kicked off my holiday rom-com whatever binge, I guess, for the year. So that's the only one I've watched so far, but they have been looming on the horizon for me. And this one, weirdly, the holiday calendar is, of course, a Christmas romance, all about a magical advent calendar, and it was great fun. But the main actress is the same actress who starred in Love in the Villa that I watched fairly recently, I think last month. And that was the last romance movie that I watched, I think. So a little weird coincidence there, but she was good in both, and it was a cheesy, enjoyable holiday rom-com for sure. So I think that was a good starter. I tried another one later on this week, and I didn't even write down what the title of it was because I just stopped almost immediately because it was so bad. So I don't remember what it was. But I will be continuing on with my holiday rom-coms probably from here on until January, most likely. So I think that's it for books and media. Lifey stuff that's going on is a lot. I'm still in chaos mode, and I do have a long weekend. And in my crazed mind, I think I'm going to just read a ton, and I'm gonna read like 20 books in a week. I do literally have, I checked 20 books checked out from the library across all formats, which is not quite an all-time high, but it's very close. And so I'm like looking at that thinking, how am I going to read all of this in a month? So obviously I have 2 that are going back. That's good, that I just recapped, but that's not making a dent in my 20 books that I have to get to. So I have overdone it with library stuff. Plus I have at least 2 other things I want to get to on audio that I have thought like, oh yes, I'm going to get to those sequels. And I don't know that I am. Stuff for my TBR that I want to get to on my own shelves. Yeah. But in the midst of all of that, what I didn't say about my long weekend is that I have to move half of my house, or clear out half of my house. That's why I have the long weekend. So I don't know if it's going to happen. We will very much see. So I think I'm probably going to get less done than I am hoping, but I think it will be okay. We will see next week. Since last week, I guess I had Thanksgiving. That was really, really lovely. I have a new bed coming today because with the clearing out the house, I'm having furniture hauled out. And so I thought this was an opportune moment to get a bunch of stuff that it was timed intentionally, that I'm going to get some stuff hauled away and replaced after the new floor is in. So yeah, I'm dealing with a lot of chaos right now. So I'm giving myself many birthday/Christmas presents in replacing every single thing in my house, it feels like. And I'm actually oddly looking forward to taking all of the books off of the shelves. That is probably going to be the biggest piece of work, because I have about 700 books and an entire shelf of games to move. So it'll be fun to clear everything off and reset it. I like that refreshing of shelves is always enjoyable, and my brain is already thinking about the Tetris of where I can move books and realign them. So that will be enjoyable, and a great way to start or end, I guess, the year. We'll see whether I wait or if I start putting things back as soon as everything is resettled. So I think that's it for me for this week. I think I've rambled on enough as usual. So thank you very much for watching.